Welcome to this e-learning on mental health. Over the next 80 minutes, I'm going to discuss with you not only why having mentally healthy workplaces is so important, but also some key background concepts which can help us all understand why this is so necessary. I'm also going to discuss some key actions which can be put in place to help improve mental health at our workplaces. Some of these actions are simple and others more complex. Some are free and others show returns beyond the initial investment. But they all have one thing in common, and that is with every action, your workplace will be closer to being mentally healthy, where every person can thrive. As managers and supervisors, our role in this is critical. We need to not only be preventing work-related harm, but also intervening early and supporting recovery, especially when it comes to mental ill health, whether work-related or not. Doing this allows us to create a mentally healthy workplace. For those who don't know Wood, we are a global leader in the delivery of project management, engineering, consulting and technical services to energy and built environment customers, and operate in more than 60 countries. Wood delivers a comprehensive range of services to support our customers across the entire asset life cycle. We are a business where we have experienced tragedies and seen the effects and impacts of mental ill health, which is why we have targeted this issue as one of our action areas for improvement through our Global Wellbeing Standard, as well as country-specific procedures. Having a mentally healthy workplace matters. It's as important as a physically safe workplace, and is one that not only protects and promotes mental health, but also reduces stigma, creates an environment where we feel safe to talk about our mental health at work, and empowers us to seek support, which will not only benefit ourselves, but our families, workplaces and communities too. And this is becoming increasingly important. As far back as 2007, the Australian Bureau of Statistics reported that 45%, or nearly 1 in 2 of us, will experience a mental illness in our lifetime. In the most recent ABS National Health Survey in 2017 to 2018, 20.1% of Australians reported experiencing a mental or behavioural condition in the previous year, which was a rise of 2.6% from 2014 to 15. The Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists, RANZCP, report of 2014 estimated that the cost of mental illness in Australia was $56.7 billion per year. This includes the direct economic costs of mental illness arising from the use of health and other services, as well as indirect costs due to loss of productivity because people were unable to work. And that's not the only report that has demonstrated the staggering impact of mental illness to our society. In 2018, KPMG and Mental Health Australia report, Investing to Save, looked at how much mental ill health in the workplace costs Australian employers. The report found that mental ill health costs on average $3,200 per worker and up to $5,600 per worker for workers with severe mental ill health. Overall, it was estimated that the cost to the workplace alone in Australia was $12.8 billion in 2015 to 2016. Given such figures, which are looking just at the financial and not even considering the social impact and increasing safety risks, workplace mental health is a major issue which needs addressing. If you look at our workplaces right now, 1 in 6 of our workers will be experiencing mental ill health, and that's whether you identify it or not. In Australia this year alone, 3 million people will experience mental health issues related to anxiety and depression, 2 million with anxiety, 1 million with depression. Another 25% on top of that will be undiagnosed. So it's not a question of if you have someone in your workplace that is experiencing mental ill health, it's more likely the case of how many, which is a sobering thought. Given that we spend up to 1/3 of our lives at work, managing mental health and having mentally healthy workplaces has never mattered more to us. Yet, based on the State of Workplace Mental Health in Australia report, only 52% of workers agree their workplace is healthy. And according to Safe Work New South Wales and Instinct and Reason in 2017, nearly 80% of New South Wales workplaces take a reactive or ad hoc approach to mental health at work. So there is much for us as managers and supervisors to do. And this picture will likely be the same in all the other states and territories. Before I speak further on how we can create those mentally healthy workplaces, it's probably a good time to be clear what is meant by mental health, mental illness, and mental ill health. Mental health is part of our overall health. It is something that we all have, and like our physical health, is constantly changing and is just as important to take care of. The World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of well-being where every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and can contribute to his or her community. Mental health is so much more than just about the absence of mental illness or ill health. It's about how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about others, and how we meet the demands of life. And it's also not static. As you know yourself, some days are so much better than others. We should therefore regard our mental health as a continuum where we are all more or less healthy on any given day, month, or year. Mental illness is different. It's a set of symptoms that can be diagnosed and which significantly impacts on how a person thinks, feels, behaves, and interacts with others. This includes mood disorders such as depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder, psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia, eating disorders, and personality disorders. The symptoms can vary in severity, but usually will require some form of medical help to aid recovery, which may take the form of counselling or psychotherapy, drug treatment, and/or lifestyle changes. These mental health disorders are also sometimes known as psychological injuries. The term psychological injury is the compensable term and something which you should be aware of. The definition of mental ill health, on the other hand, is much more wide-ranging. It includes mental illness, but can also involve symptoms such as changes in emotion or behaviour that are not sufficiently severe to be diagnosed as a mental illness. These symptoms may resolve in time or when a person's situation changes, or if problems persist or increase in severity, may develop into mental illness. However, an important point to note is that mental ill health is not only treatable, but can also in some circumstances be preventable too. Numerous studies have demonstrated that working in healthy, safe workplaces and doing meaningful work can help prevent mental ill health. I know it can be hard to believe sometimes, but work contributes to our happiness. It helps build our confidence and self-esteem, allows us to stay connected socially, as well as having the bonus of providing us a source of income and independence. Because of these benefits, it also allows people to recover faster if they have been injured or ill, and from a business perspective, supporting people and getting people back to work is good for business too. But apart from the moral business responsibility, there are also legal responsibilities too when it comes to mental health. In Australia, we all have duties under the state's work health and safety legislation to identify and manage workplace hazards and risks and create safe workplaces. When the law mentions health, it's not just physical health that they mean, but includes our mental or psychological health as well. In fact, the existing work health and safety laws set out quite specific duties to manage the risks to psychological health and safety. It might feel like I've introduced even more terms when speaking about mental health now that I've mentioned the term psychological health, but don't get too caught up on this terminology, as basically I'm talking about the same thing. In essence, I'm talking of mental health and the risk of going on to develop mental ill health and illness. Many of us viewing this webinar will be involved in supporting our businesses to meet these legal duties and, in particular, the duty of care. Business must consider mental health when they design their safe systems of work. They must also provide appropriate information, training and supervision to workers so that they can stay healthy and safe, as well as manage the hazards within their workplace that can result in the development of illness or psychological injury, and provide that safe work environment. There's certainly a lot for us to do. The hazards that I just mentioned, which can cause psychological injury or illness, are typically known as the psychosocial hazards. Psychosocial hazards, as defined by Safe Work Australia, are the factors in the design or management of work that increases the risk of work-related stress, which can then lead to psychological or physical harm. However, you may also have heard them called psychological hazards, work-related stresses, workplace factors, or organisational factors, but in essence, they are all the same thing. And there is more. The model work health and safety legislation also requires due diligence to be undertaken. Due diligence involves directors and those with influence over business decisions taking reasonable steps to gain an understanding of the psychosocial hazards and risks of the business, and ensure that the business you are in complies with the duties that I just mentioned. This means that your business has and uses appropriate resources and processes to manage your particular workplace psychological health risks. A good resource to help you with this is the Model Code of Practice, How to Manage Work Health and Safety Risks, as well as the Safe Work Australia Guide, Work-Related Psychological Health, a systematic guide to meeting your duties which gives more specific guidance for psychological workplace hazards. Finally, a big part of due diligence is also making sure that you keep up to date with your knowledge and understanding of the health and safety matters that apply to your specific operation and industry. And this webinar aims to provide some of this when it comes to discussing the creation of mentally healthy workplaces. So, what do we know about mentally healthy workplaces? Mentally healthy workplaces prevent harm to their workers by managing their psychological risks. They promote the positive aspects of work as well as positive mental health. They also protect the well-being of their staff and support those who have a mental health condition. In a mentally healthy workplace, everyone has responsibilities towards mental health, and everyone contributes to the culture, which is free of stigma and discrimination, and where people feel safe to talk about their mental health. As managers, not only do we have the influence to develop and embed this, there is even more that we can do. Having a mentally healthy workplace should form the foundation of how we do business, and be an ongoing improvement process well beyond simply putting a policy in place. To create and maintain a mentally healthy workplace requires you to have a multi-level workplace approach that addresses policies, processes, systems, culture, and leadership. There should be ongoing targeted actions that focus on promotion, prevention, early intervention, as well as recovery support, which I'll discuss more on later. Apart from meeting our legislative requirements when it comes to psychological health and safety risks, having a mentally healthy workplace makes good business sense. Looking at the return on investment, which to be honest is an important consideration for most, if not all businesses, considerable benefits can be demonstrated. The Price Waterhouse Cooper study commissioned by Beyond Blue in 2014 found that workplaces in Australia received a return of $2.30 for every dollar spent on effective mental health. And this amount has been even greater in some other studies. In New South Wales, the 2017 Mentally Healthy Workplaces Return on Investment study reported a return of $3.90 for small to medium employers and $3.74 for a large organisation. Even more staggering was the very recent New South Wales trial focusing on line manager training on implementing adjustments to working conditions, where nearly a $10 return for every dollar invested was reported. The report also identified that workers took nearly one less day sick leave in the 6 months after interventions were put in place. Positive impacts on presenteeism, absenteeism, and workers' compensation were also seen in the Beyond Blue commissioned report that I just mentioned. In case you are uncertain, presenteeism means working when you are at a reduced capacity due to ill health, while absenteeism, on the other hand, is when you are regularly staying away from work due to sick leave, for example. Getting back to the report, the effective workplace interventions on mental health resulted in 1/3 less absences and workers' compensation claims, as well as an additional increase of 10 hours of productivity for people with mild mental health conditions, an increase of 7 productive days for people working with moderate mental health conditions, and an increase of 17 productive working days for people with severe mental health conditions. This is a phenomenal difference and demonstrates quite clearly how important having mentally healthy workplaces really are. And it's not just the effect on day-to-day business productivity and performance that this can generate, but having a mentally healthy workplace has obvious benefits to our individual workers as well as the culture of our workplaces too. So really, it's a win-win situation for everyone. Keeping talented workers for longer periods not only reduces our workplace costs and turnover, it's also important for attaining our organisational knowledge, skills and experience, and ultimately, keeping our clients happy. The 2014 Heads Up an Instinct and Reason Employer of Choice study highlighted how important working in mentally healthy workplace was to workers. After basic pay, a mentally healthy workplace was the second most important attribute that workers looked at when choosing a new job. Not only that, the study also showed that workers were less likely to change jobs if they were in a friendly and supportive work environment that supported and protected their mental health. The converse was also true. 45% overall in the study also left their job due to a poor mental health environment. Of particular note was the generational difference. Older workers may have endured mentally unhealthy workplaces in the past, but the new generation of workers will not, so as a salutary note to us all. You will know yourself, when you feel supported, valued and engaged, you are much more likely to be committed to something and do your best. It should go without saying, having a positive workplace culture brings out the best in everyone, which has obvious benefits for your business, whether through good job design, zero tolerance to bullying, or flexible working arrangements. Some of the ways that we've tried to do this at Wood includes providing workers an opportunity for professional training and development, hosting regular one-on-one meetings with line managers and workers, and setting short and long-term work goals as part of the professional development review process. Activities like this can keep workers motivated in their jobs, feel supported in their careers, and increase their job satisfaction. It also helps reduce absences from workers staying away when what they need is reasonable adjustments or support to recover at work. Another benefit is that it also means less presenteeism as well from people turning up who may need some time off, but struggle in as they feel obliged for a variety of reasons. From a business and workplace perspective, these are all good things. More than this, it demonstrates we care about our people, which at Wood is one of our 3 core values. From the individual perspective, mentally healthy workplaces can provide many benefits, including confidence, a feeling of belonging, a sense of purpose and achievement, as well as social camaraderie and support. And let's not forget the financial aspects too, as healthy workplaces also tend to be successful workplaces. If you're experiencing mental ill health or illness, a mentally healthy workplace will also make it easier to get the support you need to get better, help alleviate your symptoms, allow you to continue to enjoy the benefits of work, and boost your mental fitness for the future. At Wood, to support workers, a confidential worker assistance program has been set to provide not only counselling services, but also life advice, such as managing addictions, planning for pregnancy, even retirement. There is freely available advice on the Occupational Health Intranet site too, on a range of health topics, including managing change, as well as maintaining good mental health. But it doesn't all have to be physical resources provided. Peer-to-peer support in itself is hugely beneficial when assisting recovery at work. Your attitudes and approach alone can pay considerable dividends. However, I certainly won't pretend that it's all plain sailing. Business size can alter how the challenges of meeting a mentally healthy workplace are met. Small businesses have some unique pressures in comparison to medium or larger ones, like Wood. Speaking as someone who has been self-employed in the past, there are greater pressures to work when sick. You wear multiple hats and have multiple responsibilities. You might be doing the actual job, but then you've got to follow up with the admin and bookkeeping as well. You also have the added burden of financial stresses due to unpredictable income, challenges in achieving work-life balance, particularly when you are trying to establish yourself. I'm not really painting a great picture. However, there are also many benefits too when it comes to being in a small business. Being your own boss and setting your own agenda being a great positive, as well as being part of a small and inclusive workforce, which itself has numerous positive benefits for your mental health. However, medium and larger businesses do have their challenges too, often in trying to gain impetus above the noise from operational challenges, as well as providing something that can be embedded when you have people dispersed across a wide geographic area. It may sound overwhelming, especially as a small business owner, but a mentally healthy workplace is achievable for all businesses. But to do so needs genuine and continuous commitment across all levels of the workplace for this to happen, and you play a pivotal role in this. What I also need to emphasize is that the steps and actions that are needed are the same, whatever size of business you are, and shouldn't be too costly or time-consuming to implement. Some steps you need to take are small, some are big, some are quick and cost-effective, while others take a bit more time. But they all have one thing in common, and that is with every action, your workplace will be closer to being mentally healthy where every person can thrive. Research undertaken by the University of New South Wales Black Dog Institute and the Australian Government's National Mental Health Commission has shown that there are several key topics which workplaces need to address to maximise the mental health and well-being of their workforce. These are smarter work design, building better work cultures, building resilience, intervening early, increasing awareness, and supporting recovery. In New South Wales, these have been developed into 4 key action areas, headlined into leading change, creating a positive culture, and managing factors, raising awareness, and educating and connecting to support, which aim to both reduce the risk and impact of mental ill health, as well as promote positive mental health. Taking these integrated actions not only helps with understanding on how everything that you do fits together, but also gives you that big picture view. This will help you create your mentally healthy workplace, which is, after all, an essential characteristic of any comprehensive work health and safety management system. But deciding where to start can be difficult. Often the best way to begin is with small improvements and build from there. You don't have to do everything at once. Remember, these key action areas are integrated actions. They all have an influence on each other, so consider starting with some simple activities with a small investment. As I mentioned before, this doesn't have to be costly, but it can still bring dividends. Then, over time, develop a more comprehensive mental health and well-being program as you see what approach suits your business best. Some examples of things that you can do when starting out includes putting up posters that promote positive mental health or circulate fact sheets. At Wood, we've included mental health information in our monthly HSSEA newsletter, as well as put information on our intranet site. We've also created a list of local, regional and national resources for both online as well as services that offer face-to-face support, and not just limited it to mental health services, but included listings on support organisations for carers, as well as those dealing with physical conditions too. This year, we also organised a lunchtime walk to support Are You OK Day. It was a great opportunity to not only raise awareness of the importance of looking out for each other, but also allowed us to build on our workplace networks and supports. But that's not the only examples. You could also use resources from SafeWork Australia or Beyond Blue's workplace website Heads Up for toolbox talks, or use the webinars that they have on mental health awareness. Moving on from this, you could then start doing activities which build on this knowledge and look at ways of staying mentally fit, such as mindfulness training. Something else that can be of benefit is to undertake a staff survey. It not only supports the requirement to consult with workers that we have under the work health and safety legislation, but conducting a survey allows the workforce to provide feedback on areas of their particular concern, which you can then evaluate. Doing this supports one of the key action areas, and that is leading change. Leading change is about your leadership and the way that your business works. It's about having the policies, processes, behavioural norms and leadership behaviours that can drive positive change in the business. By sharing with your team that you're committed to a mentally healthy workplace shows workers that positive mental health is important. It helps workers not only to feel more connected to the business, but valued and more confident to speak about their mental health, as well as to engage in positive practices that can help their mental health. As I've mentioned, at Wood, one of our core values that we follow as best we can is care. By having senior managers that have openly discussed their own mental health challenges, as well as described ways that they themselves switch off, has helped considerably in both raising awareness and normalising our approach to mental health. Other things that we've done and are continuing to do is review our policies and processes so that people are clear on their job roles, have the option of flexible working, as well as are aware of the zero-tolerance approach to harassment, including bullying. But these examples are not the only things that can be done. Developing and endorsing workplace policies that align with a mentally healthy workplace helps demonstrate clearly your leadership commitment to change. From research, there is strong evidence that when workers believe their leaders value a mentally healthy workplace, there are significant attitude and behavioural benefits. In the 2014 State of Workplace Mental Health in Australia report, 75% of workers, compared to 8%, believed that their workplaces were mentally healthy when they perceived that their leaders valued mental health. And when absence rates were looked at, the time taken off for feeling mentally unwell in the past 12 months was more than halved to 16% from 36%. As you can see, as a manager, you can make such a big difference. Good leaders keep their people safe, whether it's from workplace physical hazards or psychosocial ones. And leading change means leading by example and inspiring others. What I should point out is that some of the actions necessary to walk the talk require the development, introduction, or update of policies and procedures, such as the workplace anti-bullying policy, as well as policies and processes to support a positive and inclusive culture. While others also involve behavioural changes, such as respectful behaviours and walking the talk. This is where you have such a crucial role, and that is leading by example. Leading by example means promoting healthy behaviours, including looking after yourself and seeking help when it is needed. Have a break and try not to eat at your desk. Get up and go elsewhere. Perhaps get some fresh air and incorporate a walk. Practice what you preach and switch off after work. Don't answer those emails unless absolutely essential. Promoting mental health and well-being at work is a quick and easy way to attain action when it comes to getting started on your mentally healthy workplace journey. Recognition is something else that you can do. This can be either through formal or informal rewards, as well as simple acknowledgement. It doesn't take much to say good job or well done, but can make such a difference to your workers when it comes to supporting mental health and well-being. And it's not just encouraging healthy practices, but as a leader you need to create a positive culture and understand and effectively manage the factors in your workplace which may be influencing the mental health and well-being of your workers. As you know, prevention is so much better than cure. I'm going to speak about more on this later, but as managers and supervisors, recognizing and addressing both the contributing factors as well as the signs and symptoms when someone is experiencing mental health issues will go a long way to making your workplace a mentally healthy one. As will consulting with your workers, which you'll remember I flagged before. After all, they are the best source of information when it comes to identifying the factors which are impacting on their mental health and well-being. In fact, worker input is invaluable when it comes to creating the mental health strategy or plan that your business needs, so that you can lead the change and find new ways of working to achieve that mentally healthy workplace. Consulting also has other benefits. It allows you to create that positive and inclusive workplace culture so that everyone feels safe to speak about their mental health and have the meaningful conversations that should be had. Walking the talk. It also means that you support your workers when they need it and make the support relevant to the individual, team, role or type of work that they do. So have that conversation, be genuine, and link them to appropriate support services, tools and resources that your business has identified, and support their recovery at work. And if they are off, stay in touch. I know that a lot of these actions come up time and time again, but this just emphasises how interrelated the action areas are. Part of leading change is knowing what supports are available to your workers, whether it's support through a worker assistance program, access to an occupational health provider, or services in your local community. So learn what you have available in your business. Maintaining regular contact with workers that need to take time off due to mental ill health or illness allows them to still feel part of the team and can make their return easier. So checking in with them regularly at agreed intervals is another important part of walking that talk. Even inviting them back to the workplace for lunch or coffee to keep them connected to their work friends and colleagues. This helps make it easier for the individual to return once they are feeling better. I appreciate that to walk the talk as I've just described may appear daunting, but is a skill that can be learnt. You don't need to be a qualified mental health specialist to do this. Rather, a caring and compassionate human being who can help prevent harm from happening in their workplace, promote well-being and support recovery. As a leader, your role is not about treating, but one where you create and maintain a healthy and safe work environment. The development of management capabilities should be very much part of your business mental health strategy or plan, as having supportive and capable leaders has benefits not only for your workers, but the business too. Research has shown that when managers have particular competencies, it can reduce work-related stress and promote positive mental health. As I've mentioned all the way along, you as a line manager have such a crucial role in developing mentally healthy workplaces, and your behaviours are integral to this. The competencies you need centre around being respectful and responsible, engaging with your team, managing difficult situations and communicating effectively. A simple way of understanding where your strengths and maybe weaknesses are can be gauged by doing a self-assessment. One that you could use is the Competency Indicator Self-Assessment, which is part of WorkSafe Queensland's Mentally Healthy Workplaces Toolkit. The UK's HSE has also a competency tool that you could use, which was developed in association with the Chartered Institute of Personal Development, which allows you to identify if you have behaviours effective or otherwise for preventing or reducing stress at work. One of the most important of these competencies, though, is communication. And to be honest, it is the one that most people feel least confident with, particularly when dealing with mental health. However, there are some simple tips which you could use, which can help improve confidence. Use opportunities that are already in place, such as your regular work planning sessions, appraisals, or informal chats about progress. These give neutral and supportive opportunities for your workers to talk about any problems they may be experiencing. These opportunities are ideal to facilitate early intervention of their concerns. Also, when talking together, ask questions in an open and non-judgmental way. This gives the opportunity for your worker to speak about their concerns in their own way. And be brave and admit that you may not be good at asking the questions, but even simply asking if they are okay is a good start. Remember too that your workers may well have different experiences, values and feelings from you. However, accept and respect these as they are. Don't judge or criticise just because they are different from yours. Always be genuine when you deal with your workers. Show that you accept and respect their values in the way you speak and deal with them, even if they are different from yours. By showing that you hear and understand what they are saying and feeling gives you not only a better perspective of where they are coming from, but also demonstrates to your workers that you do genuinely care. Remember too that when we communicate, we do so with much more than just words. How we say things, and also how we do things, can influence any discussion. These are known as the verbal and non-verbal actions. Following some simple tips can help you apply these actions and gain the most out of any conversation that you have with your team. So, for those verbal actions, listen, and listen without interrupting. Pay attention not only to what is being said, but also pay attention to how things are being said. Focus on the tone of the voice as well as body language, and check that you have understood. Ask appropriate questions so that you are clear about what is being said. A good tip is to summarize facts as well as feelings. Also, use minimal prompts to keep the conversation going. And and I see can go a long way to help. Another good tip is not to try to fill any silences. They can be helpful and give the person time to think or organize their thoughts. By interrupting, you may also give the impression that you are only trying to hurry things along and are not that interested. When it comes to how we communicate, or the non-verbal actions, Then ideally sit when you have the conversation, as this allows you to appear less threatening, even if the other person is standing. And try not to sit directly opposite, as this can appear confrontational. Keep your body posture open, pay attention, and keep eye contact. If you listen, are empathetic and supportive, it makes it easier for your workers to feel able to open up about their mental health concerns and be honest with you. This then allows you to assess and plan what support can be offered to help them. Another thing that can help is to frame conversations around exploring and trying to find a solution to their perceived issues. However, not all conversations can be made in the space of appraisals, work planning sessions, or informal progress chats. There will always be times, though, when you need to have a more in-depth conversation. So plan that. Think carefully about the how, when, and where to have that conversation. Building positive ways of working that better supports worker mental health at work, as well as building capacity to understand mental health better, is also part of walking that talk. At Wood, we're in the process of rolling out a program on line manager mental health awareness training, but that's only one example of what can be done. Training in work design for managers could be something else that you could consider when it comes to building capacity in your business. Good work design helps optimize human performance, job satisfaction, as well as business success by considering 4 things: the work systems, physical working environment, and the workers and people in the business. It addresses the workplace characteristics, including the psychosocial characteristics of work, together with the needs and capabilities of the people involved, but more on this later. Good work design is about our businesses and organisations creating jobs, processes, and work environments that are healthy, safe, and productive. It's about us effectively using the risk management approach to eliminate or minimise the impact of workplace factors by using appropriate actions and tailoring jobs to be more manageable, and which I'm going to speak about more on later. A good resource to help with this is the Safe Work Australia Principles of Good Work Design Handbook. Here, you'll find 10 steps that will take you through the why, the what, and the how of effectively designing good work by considering the work itself, the physical working environment, as well as the physical, emotional, and mental capacities and needs of your workers. It does this by identifying work design issues, understanding them, designing the solution, and analysing the options before selecting the preferred option for managing the issues, then implementing and testing them. The steps help you then design work to prevent or reduce the impact of the factors I've mentioned before, such as excessive job demands and low control on the mental health of your workers. Another good place to get advice is Curtin University's Centre for Transformative Work Design. It has lots of good resources on its website that you could use. Putting in place good design not only means considering flexible work conditions, but reasonable work adjustments and monitoring of your workers' workload too. And something not to be forgotten, providing opportunities for your workers to contribute to decisions that impact on them. When it comes to work demands, there are some very definite do's and don'ts. As a manager, do make sure that your workers take suitable breaks, have deadlines and workloads that are realistic, and you manage the expectations of your colleagues. Learn to say no if your team is at full capacity, and try to vary the tasks that your team perform to keep them motivated and interested. Other things that you can do is monitor and spread the workload and complexity, as well as make sure that their work environment is suitable by limiting noise and disturbances. A good tip is if you know there is a big job task coming up, book out some time in your workers' calendars to provide some protection for them, and make sure you are available to provide support to those who are less experienced or are under pressure. Remember too that safe work design means identifying psychological hazards in the task activities themselves. It's not just about the workload. Talking with your workers is an excellent place to start when assessing for these. You can get further help on identifying and managing psychological hazards by referring to the Safe Work Australia Guide for Work-Related Psychological Health and Safety, a systematic approach to help meet your duties. And don't ask workers to do tasks they are not capable of or trained for, or allow your workers to cope by working longer hours. And remember when I spoke about walk the talk? Don't contact staff outside office hours, when on leave or off duty, unless in extreme circumstances. One thing I should point out is that a lot of the actions when it comes to good work design are all integrated. Good work design means not only monitoring workloads, but adjusting work to be mentally healthy with realistic work schedules, providing flexibility where possible, as well as clear job descriptions, all of which are validated interventions that work in both preventing, managing, and even improving mental health at work. I've spoken a lot about what leaders need to do, but it can be hard sometimes to identify the resources that provide the evidence-based, validated guidance that we need. So I've included a few which at Wood we've found of assistance. These include Heads Up, which provides a leadership kit and manager resources, the New South Wales Mental Health at Work website, as well as the WorkSafe Queensland Mentally Healthy Workplaces Toolkit that I mentioned before. Superfriend, Sane Australia, and Time to Change, which is a UK site, are others which we've also referenced and found of benefit. So I hope that this will be of benefit to you, and not only when it comes to leading change, but when you're addressing the other action areas too. Before moving on to the second of the action area, which is managers you have influence over, which is creating a positive culture and managing the workplace factors that are known to impact mental health at work, a quick reminder of the activities that you can do to lead change. Remember, your leading change actions means walking the talk, being a supportive leader, an effective communicator, and creating good work design. Now, on to discuss how you can create that positive culture. Your workplace culture is its character and personality. It's what makes your business unique. It's the sum of your shared traditions, beliefs, interactions, and attitudes, and is reflected in the values and behaviours that your workers demonstrate. It's well known that positive workplace cultures attract talent, drive engagement, impacts happiness and satisfaction, and affects performance. In fact, research has shown that organisations with highly engaged workforces outperform peers with low levels of worker engagement by up to 20% in productivity. So, to achieve this, it's important that everyone feels comfortable to express who they are, to raise issues or seek support, and be empowered to influence decisions that affect them. It's your role as manager that is pivotal. I know I say this a lot, but it's so true. You can influence how workers feel about the time they spend at work, encouraging them to enjoy themselves and to feel part of a community that respects, values, and supports them. Creating a positive and inclusive workplace isn't as daunting as you may believe. There are, in fact, some very simple things to do, and probably the most important, which almost goes without saying, is to treat people as you would expect to be treated yourself, with dignity and respect. And remember, everyone has a part to play in creating this positive culture. It speaks clearly that we're all in this together. Focusing on diversity and inclusion at Wood has been fundamental to the efforts in creating a great working environment and positive culture where workers are involved, respected, valued, trusted, connected, and empowered. It means workers not only have opportunities for growth and development, but are supported to be themselves. After all, people bring their whole selves to work. They don't just leave the worries and life issues they have at the front door. At Wood, we've set up listening networks through our Yammer system, which is an internal social media posting platform. It allows everyone in the business to communicate more freely with each other and therefore support each other, with groups set up to support on a wide range of issues, including positive insights into mental health, a carers network, as well as the Pride network. But it doesn't have to be as involved as this. Activities that you could consider to support the culture on mental health in your business could include such simple things as getting to know your colleagues by a smile and saying hello each day. Other things could be having lunches or coffees together, as well as team building events. Having open discussions about mental health at work is another thing that you could do in normalising mental health as being part of our overall health and not as something separate. I spoke earlier about communication in the organisation. Every Mind also has some guidance materials that you could use to help give you some hints and tips when talking to your workers, especially if you feel uncertain what to say. Speaking about issues also allows people to look at things from a different perspective and is one of the well-recognised ways of helping people achieve good mental health. Other activities that you could also consider is providing workplace cultural awareness training and resources. There is a large amount of evidence that shows culture not only plays a significant role in terms of how we understand health and illness, but that culture also affects the way that people cope with both everyday problems as well as more serious events. Cultural competence training can be done through the Cultural Competency Program found in the Multicultural New South Wales Government website. Key to having that positive business culture when it comes to mental health is reducing the stigma associated with mental ill health. If you remember back at the start, I defined what mental health was. Mental health is a positive concept. However, negative attitudes about mental ill health or illness can make people feel that their reputations are at stake if they admit something is wrong. This stigma is the barrier that we need to break down so that our workers seek the support whether at the beginning of a challenging period or when experiencing mental ill health or illness, so that they can recover quicker and continue to contribute positively to not only our workplaces, but to the communities we live in as well. Stigma in the workplace is what makes it harder and take longer for workers to recover. It means that your workers are less likely to get support early, which can make their condition more serious, and this makes recovery harder. Much of the stigma associated with mental illness is because people don't understand it. If you don't know what mental ill health and illness are, then it's difficult to know how to respond. This lack of mental health awareness is one of the biggest factors in people being unfairly treated or isolated, but is also one as managers that we have the power to remedy and address. I've mentioned before about how senior managers at Wood have shared their mental health stories, but this isn't the only thing that can be done. I'm going to speak more about education and raising awareness later, as it's another of the action areas. Briefly, awareness training for everyone in your business, and pitched at different levels for the line managers as well as workers, will have huge gains to creating a mentally healthy workplace. Mental health awareness training can help you learn to recognise the early signs of mental illness. In fact, training was a key recommendation mentioned in a report from the UK's regulator, the Health and Safety Executive, on the summary of the evidence on the effectiveness of mental health first aid training in the workplace. Training can be done through multiple different means, such as online training or getting local mental health organisations to come in and do a lunch and learn, or use resources such as those recommended on the SafeWork New South Wales Mental Health at Work website. As a manager, you're uniquely placed to both work with your workers to build a positive and inclusive workplace culture, as well as develop good systems for supporting mental health. Importantly, identifying and working out what is contributing to these early signs in the workplace and putting in place preventive actions is really the only way to address the necessary changes needed to produce a lasting, mentally healthy workplace. By making a culture where your workers feel safe and supported to talk about mental health at work means workers are then more likely to reach out for support early and, by doing so, improve their recovery. And from that business perspective, helps the business bottom line too. It's a win-win situation for all. But before I speak about the workplace factors that you may need to address, there's something else that you need to consider, and that is what is known as other factors. When we come to work, it's our whole selves that we bring. We don't just leave our home and life challenges at the door, but bring it all with us. And these too can impact on our mental health in the workplace. You, therefore, need to remember about these non-workplace factors so that you can help plan or respond more effectively when workers need support. And it's not just home and life challenges that we need to think about, but what is known as the biopsychosocial factors of the worker as well. You may have heard of the biopsychosocial model before, but if not, the biopsychosocial model states that the workings of the body, mind, and environment are all interconnected and affect each other. It is this interplay between people's genetic makeup, biology, mental health and behaviour, psychology, and social and cultural context that determines the course of their health-related outcomes. So always remember to consider these external factors. By doing so, you can better manage and support a worker suffering from mental ill health. At Wood, we've created a list of local resources which line managers can provide to workers so that they can identify where they can get help and assistance when dealing with such challenges as domestic violence, gambling addiction, or caring duties. This is maybe something for you to consider, but there are other resources and supports that you can provide. However, for me, the big take-home message is don't forget the non-work related factors when it comes to managing and supporting your workers, as they may well influence how your workers are affected by any workplace factors. I can't emphasize enough, amongst the 4 action areas, how crucial reducing the workplace factors affecting mental health are for you as a manager to address. After all, preventing psychological harm is so much better than cure. If you're not sure what workplace factors are, have a look at the SafeWork New South Wales Mental Health at Work website under Know the Factors button, which provides a list of common workplace factors. But briefly, workplace factors are the things in the way you design or manage work that increases the risk of you or your workers developing mental ill health or illness. As a manager, you must get to know your own unique workplace factors. So, how do you go about doing this? Identifying your workplace factors that influence the mental health of your workers is very much a data-informed action. I keep coming back to the same point, but one of the best sources of information is through consultation with your workers. Ask them if they have identified any factors that are affecting their mental health. One way of doing this is by a staff survey, or you could set up a focus group. Information may also come from your Health and Safety Committee or even audit findings. Consultation is a requirement, as you may be aware, under the Work Health and Safety legislation, but it also makes good business sense to get your workers' input. After all, they are the ones most likely affected, but often are the ones most likely to come up with a practical, workable solution to address any factors. Other sources of good information are your HR records. Look at the rate of your staff turnover. A high turnover usually indicates something is wrong. Also, the absence records and amount of unplanned absenteeism, as well as number of workers' compensation claims that you have. If you have a worker assistance program, look at the usage of the services they provide, and another thing to look at are any bullying or harassment claims. Another good resource for common psychological hazards and factors can be found in the WorkSafe Queensland Mentally Healthy Workplace Toolkit. The SafeWork Australia Work-Related Psychological Health and Safety, a systematic approach to meeting your duties guidance document, is another good resource which provides further information on recognised workplace hazards and options for control measures. Some points that you should note are the factors you identify may apply across your whole organisation or have a greater impact on particular teams, occupations or workers. Also, some factors may work together, such as bullying. This is more likely to occur in a workplace where there is a lack of social support. In addition, your workers may be affected by multiple workplace factors at once, which may also increase the impact on their mental health. Once you've identified your workplace factors, then you can work on your plan of actions to address them. Remember that you should check their effectiveness to make sure you have created that mentally healthy workplace that you want, that builds the knowledge, skills and capabilities of your workers to be resilient and thrive at work and make improvements as necessary. Basically, follow the risk management approach. The first step in the risk management approach is to identify your workplace hazards. This means looking for the factors that have the potential to cause harm. This can include excessive job demands, particularly when combined with low job control, where you feel that you can't make decisions about how you carry out your workday today. In fact, the University of Sydney Review of Evidence of Psychosocial Risks for Mental Ill Health in the Workplace in 2017 reported that workers in jobs with high demands and low control were well known to experience work stress, and not only that, had a 75 to 100% greater risk of developing mental ill health as well. This was in contrast to those who had high demands yet high control, such as senior business leaders, or those with low demands and low control. It was the high demands, low control combination that increased the risk to workers' mental health. Other workplace factors that you may identify include poor support, as well as low recognition and reward. The University of Sydney review showed those who were under-recognised were almost twice as likely to experience mental ill health as those that did. It also identified that job uncertainty increased the risk of mental ill health by up to 30%. This can be difficult to both prevent and manage, given the general uncertainty that we live in, but managing expectations and change can certainly make a difference. Speaking of change, poorly managed and communicated organisational change is another of the factors that can impact on your workers' mental health. If this is something that you feel could be done better in your business, then have a look at the Queensland Government Change Management Best Practices Guide for some good advice. Yet more workplace factors to look out for are poor workplace relationships, low job clarity, poor organisational justice, remote or isolated work, poor environmental conditions, as well as bullying and workplace conflict and violence. SafeWork New South Wales defines workplace bullying as repeated and unreasonable behaviour directed towards a worker or group of workers that creates a risk to their health and safety. Bullying can occur in any workplace and can be harmful to your workers if they experience or witness it. Creating the positive and inclusive culture that I spoke of earlier can go a long way to addressing this, as does having an anti-bullying policy, another thing that you could consider for your workplace. Something that you may find useful when it comes to identifying your hazards is the People at Work survey. This free survey can be found on the WorkSafe Queensland website and is based on a comprehensive review of job demands and job resources. In addition, it also considers exposure to workplace bullying, as well as covers a range of outcome factors such as absenteeism, turnover intentions, and job dissatisfaction. It provides an indication of each workplace factor as compared to other Australian workplaces. It should take about 10 to 15 minutes to complete the survey, but does need someone to collate the findings and create an action plan based on the response, which, let's be honest, will likely be you as manager or supervisor. So now that you've identified your hazards, you next need to consider if a risk assessment is necessary. If after identifying the hazard you already know the risk and how to control it effectively, then you may not need to do this. However, if you don't, then you may benefit from going through the risk assessment process. The risk assessment will help you determine how severe the risk is by assessing the likelihood and consequences of injury or illness because of exposure to those psychosocial hazards or workplace stresses. It will also tell you how urgently you need to take action, as well as the options for managing risks, elimination obviously being the ideal. But before you start filling in any forms, you need to work out who you will involve in undertaking the risk assessment. From experience, it's best to make up a small work team, that is, if you have the luxury to be able to do this. The best combination is having one of your health and safety representatives, along with yourself as manager or supervisor, and your HSE representative. However, this may not be possible in all workplaces, and sometimes you may also require calling in expert advice and help. However, whoever you choose should be competent to complete the risk assessment and have a good working knowledge of your business. And remember to get your workers' input when doing the risk assessment. Their views on the psychosocial hazards are invaluable and will give you a perspective that observation and data alone never will. You could use your organisation's risk assessment template to do this, but there are other resources available to help you do this. Resources you could use include the Heads Up Action Plan, which is available online, the guided self-assessment tool called Reducing the Psychosocial Risk of Workplace Change helps identify the risks and responses for organisations involved in a change program. By understanding the nature of the harm that could be caused, how serious the harm could be, as well as the likelihood of that harm happening, will let you determine your level of risks from your different workplace psychosocial hazards and help you prioritise the preventive and management control measures you need to take to help prevent and manage stress in your business. A word of caution before you start putting in place actions is to always check and make sure that you don't inadvertently introduce any new hazards when you implement these controls. Adding to hazardous workplace factors is never a good thing. Another crucial point, based from experience, is to make sure you take everyone on the journey when implementing preventive and management actions. Make sure there is that visible leadership commitment to the actions that are to be undertaken. Your workers have participated in the hazard identification process and that there has been regular communication and consultation on the risk management process that you have undertaken. It's a message I keep saying, but when it comes to mentally healthy workplaces, you can't communicate enough. Good communication sets you up for success. I spoke about this earlier, but making sure that your workers follow your lead and treat others with respect is key to both that positive and inclusive culture, treating each other with respect and having a mentally healthy workplace. Some actions are also easier and quicker to attain than others. Providing clear job descriptions so that your workers have role clarity, as well as knowing who they must report to, can bring huge benefits. The 2016 People at Work report on the assessment of psychosocial hazards in the workplace identified that role ambiguity was the strongest predictor of workers experiencing psychological strain, the second strongest predictor for job burnout, as well as a strong indicator for job turnover intentions. So getting this one right can help you a lot. However, other actions, such as setting up well-being checks and counselling to allow your workers to connect to support, or a professional development review process, takes much longer. But whatever actions you take, it's important that the actions you apply are supported by evidence. I'm not sure if you remember, but at the start of this webinar, I spoke about steps and actions and the key topics which workplaces needed to address to maximise the mental health and well-being of their workforce. A review performed by the University of Sydney in 2017 found that smarter work design, building resilience, intervening early, and supporting recovery were crucial interventions that not only could prevent or manage workplace factors, but actually improve mental health at work as well. One thing that you need to consider regarding validated interventions is that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Some interventions may benefit everyone, while others will be more effective and economical for certain teams or workers. Something that you can consider is that if you want to make sure interventions are going to work before investing or implementing them more broadly, you can pilot them in a smaller group or in one location. You can then see the benefits, make improvements, and then extend them across the organisation, adapting to the needs of different teams or locations. Another point to note is that workers can move between mental health, mental ill health, and illness over time. Remember that continuum? Because of this, what you will both find and need in your workplace is a range of interventions, both preventive and supportive, dependent on the situation at the time. And this is where the validated interventions of building resilience, intervening early, and supporting recovery come in. Resilience is not just our ability to bounce back, but also our capacity to adapt in the face of challenging circumstances, whilst maintaining a stable mental well-being. Resilience isn't a personality trait. It's something that we can all take steps to achieve. Not only that, it can equally apply to organisations as well as to us as individuals. When it comes to our businesses and workplaces, organisational resilience can be built not only through good management, but through training of managers, supervisors and workers in mental health literacy. As I mentioned before, this was in fact a recommendation of the UK's HSE report, Summary of the Evidence on the Effectiveness of Mental Health First Aid, MHFA, Training in the Workplace, which reported that there was consistent evidence that training raised workers' awareness of mental ill health conditions, including signs and symptoms, and aligns very much with the prevention being better than cure approach. Training for managers allows us to become more confident, gives us the skills to identify early if someone is experiencing mental ill health, as well as confidence to have conversations with workers to support them as needed. And remember when I spoke about stigma and how much this is driven by lack of awareness? Well, training for workers not only improves supportive attitudes as a result of the increased knowledge and understanding, but also improves behaviours and consequentially achieves a reduction in stigma. However, it's not just our business and organisations that can become more resilient, but personal resilience too can be developed through workplace activities, such as stress management programs. Even simple health promotion materials that encourage your workers to stay physically active can help improve personal resilience, as can mindfulness programs or tools such as health apps. But there is a word of caution. Many apps which are on the market are not validated. The recent Vic Health and Deakin University study found that most apps were not based on any scientific evidence. Some were a total waste of time, and some were downright dangerous. So if you are going to recommend an app, according to Vic Health and the Black Dog Institute, the best mental health apps include Headspace, which is a guided meditation and mindfulness app; Headgear, which is a mental fitness app that focuses on mental health; Joyable, a mental health and well-being app based on the principles of cognitive behavioural therapy; and Snapshot, which is an app designed for Australian adults to check and monitor their mental health and well-being status. Apps complement other forms of care, but they should never be used as the sole means of managing mental health. I know I've spoken a lot about the different actions and interventions that you can use to control your risk, but when it comes to mentally healthy workplaces, using a combination of different measures may not only be needed as a result of different issues affecting different parts of your business or organisation, but having a combination of measures can also more effectively control and prevent the risks of factors that you have. And finally, when it comes to the risk management process, you must maintain, monitor, and review the actions and interventions that you have put in place to make sure that they remain effective, and change them as needed. Before we move on to raising and awareness and education, just a quick refresher of the important points when it comes to creating a positive culture and managing your workplace factors. Remember, the actions for creating a positive culture and managing workplace factors are supporting and developing your workplace culture, reducing stigma in the workplace, understanding your workers' external stresses, and identifying and controlling your workplace factors. I've spoken all throughout this webinar on the importance of training and awareness, which you won't be surprised to know is another of the key action areas. As a manager, you have a real opportunity to introduce valuable mental health programs and resources in your workplace, which can have a positive impact on your workforce and your organisation's bottom line. I know that I keep emphasising this, but everyone not only should be involved in creating a mentally healthy workplace, but everyone can participate in activities that promote mental health. You know your workplace best, so tailor and individualise your programs so that they improve attitudes and language about mental health and help to reduce the stigma associated with it. I've given some examples before when I spoke about starting up, but other resources that you could use are the workers' resources on the SafeWork New South Wales Mental Health at Work website, or fact sheets from SafeWork Australia or Heads Up. The Heads Up Communications Pack can also help you when you come to developing your mental health plan, as can a Head for Business. This resource is particularly tailored for small business owners who experience that different set of challenges when it comes to managing mental health and well-being. Other resources which can be of help in raising awareness include Superfriend, which I've mentioned before. They give some good advice on how to stay mentally fit at work, as does the Healthier Workplace WA and New South Wales Government initiative Get Healthy at Work. This particular initiative focuses on 6 different priority health areas, including mental well-being. Even if you are not from New South Wales, the basis of a lifestyle questionnaire and healthy lifestyle check and targeting one of the priority areas can all help go towards creating a healthier workplace. Part of raising awareness, though, is also about encouraging early intervention and connecting to support services, which is another of the actions areas that I'm going to speak about separately. A difference in outcome can also be gained by seeking help early, and is another important part of raising awareness. Encourage your workers to raise any issues early. As you know, better outcomes can be obtained when you address issues early before they turn bad. As a manager, there are several things you can do if a worker confides that they need additional assistance. If you have one, refer them to your worker assistance program. A worker assistance program can offer free, confidential third-party counselling and support services to workers, either via telephone or in person. The advice might not only help the worker develop the knowledge and skills to recover, but also to remain well at work too. Other things that you can do is to explore with your worker what it is in the workplace that appears to be causing the issues, and redesign, if possible, or look for suitable alternative duties or workplace adjustments that could be made to prevent the development of potential psychological injury. From experience, it's always good to keep reminding your workers about your worker assistance program if you have one. You'll be amazed, or maybe not, how quickly they forget about this service. What helps though with usage is ensuring that workers are aware that it is an anonymous service. The organisation only gets usage figures, not who has actually used it. If you don't have a worker assistance program, a suggestion would be to arrange with a local psychologist who can provide services for your business as needed. You can find one through the Australian Psychological Society's website. Other supports you could offer are the community-based ones, such as the Black Dog Institute, Head to Health, Men's Line Australia, and New Access Coaching, as well as such things as wellbeing checks through your workplace occupational health provider. An important point is that if you are raising awareness, then make sure that you have already identified somewhere that your workers can get support. There's no point in telling people when there's nothing to back it up. One action requires the other and is crucial as part of that integrated approach to creating mentally healthy workplaces. By encouraging your workers to seek help early, you can make such a difference. What also can help significantly are workplace adjustments. If you have a worker at work who is struggling and needs additional support, then making even small modifications to their work can make a big difference to help them cope. Workplace adjustments are not just the right thing to do, but are also a legal requirement. You may have heard them called reasonable adjustments in the past and probably only associated them with workers with disabilities. However, the requirement for workplace adjustment actually applies to illness, injury, including those which are work-related, as well as physical, psychological, or neurological diseases or disorders. A workplace adjustment is a change to a work process, procedure, or environment that enables a person to perform their job in a way that minimises the impact of the illness, injury, disease, or disorder. Any workplace adjustment should be made in consultation with your worker and be based not only on their needs, but also considering the operational needs of your business. Adjustments do not have to be permanent, complex, or expensive, but be put in place for the time required to provide that support to your worker. Reasonable adjustments can be wide-ranging. They can include you adjusting start, finish, or break times, or making changes or modifications to workloads. They can be giving greater control to workers to manage their workload, to providing additional training to help support their skill development. Sometimes, dependent on the nature of the issue, reducing hours or days may also be something else that you can consider as you support someone to both recover and gain their confidence and work hardiness. So, it's great when your workers seek help early, as you can often do so much to help. But what can you do when they don't? I've spoken earlier of the various effects you may see when a worker is potentially distressed and who could benefit from early intervention. However, sometimes you may come across someone who doesn't either identify that they may be experiencing mental ill health or don't want to disclose this to you. If you suspect they are experiencing a mental health issue, then ask if there is any support that the business or organisation can offer, as well as advise them of the worker assistance program if you have one. If not, encourage them to speak with some of the other resources that I've mentioned before. It still may be possible to explore ways to adjust their work, but generally the best approach is to continue to check in with your worker to see how things progressed and advise that you remain concerned about their well-being and available if needed. And remember, your workers are not obliged to disclose the reasons why they may not appear to be themselves. But by having that mentally healthy workplace, you can still support them without disclosure. A good resource which may help you deal with this situation, apart from your HR colleagues, is the guidance issued by the Australian Human Rights Commission in 2010, Workers with Mental Illness, a Practical Guide for Managers. While I'm still talking about training and awareness, another resource you could consider for your business or organisation to help raise mental health awareness in your organisation is through focus or peer support groups. At Wood, this is something that we have recently set up to complement our worker assistance program. The aim of the mental health focus groups is to allow workers to share ways that they may have dealt with life challenges or experiences in supportive and understanding forums. It provides an alternative way for support to be provided, as Wood recognises that some workers don't want to speak with a doctor or line manager, particularly initially. A resource that you could consider accessing as an alternative to your own peer support program is Mates in Construction. And don't be put off by the name, as they also offer services outside of the construction industry. Creating these support groups then very neatly leads us to the fourth key action area, and that of connecting to support. But before I do that, a quick reminder of the important points when it comes to raising awareness and education. Remember, the actions for raising awareness and education means introducing mental health resources and training to your workplace, encouraging early help seeking and intervention, providing support early through workplace adjustments, and raising mental health awareness through focus or support groups. I know I keep mentioning things that are win-win situations, but there are so many activities that you can do when creating mentally healthy workplaces that can help. No more so than connecting to support mental wellness and recovery at work. I hope that you can appreciate all the way through this webinar as to how much the four key action areas are integrated, and their activities overlap and can be applied to more than one action area. This particularly is seen when it comes to connecting to support, which covers not only some of the preventive and early intervention activities, but also how we access and give support when it's needed. When it comes to supporting recovery, it's well known that getting back to work after illness or injury can not only help people recover faster, but is good for business as well. Work can play a vital role in recovery by contributing to your workers' sense of meaning and purpose. It provides social interaction, as well as opportunities for support from others in the workplace, in addition to giving structure and routine. Everyone in your business or organisation should therefore know the where, the who, and the how to access support to not only prevent mental ill health, but also support recovery. Having a mentally healthy workplace should mean that as managers, you now have the skills, systems, and processes to recognise early if someone is distressed and intervene before they suffer from a psychological injury. Learning the indicators of potential distress is an important part of this. After all, you should know your team better than anyone, and therefore be in an ideal position to identify changes which could indicate that something has altered. And it's not just in your workers or co-workers that you may see this, but in the business itself. Increased absence levels, increased staff turnover, decreased staff motivation, and staff working longer hours can all indicate that there is something wrong in your workplace. Though as a word of caution, they don't necessarily mean that there is an issue, but are suggestive that there may be. So asking is always a good thing to do, whether it's at exit interviews, return to work interviews, team meetings, or part of staff surveys. Asking if something is wrong is also important if you see signs that someone may be distressed when they exhibit physical effects, such as constant colds or being tired at work, emotional effects such as irritability and oversensitivity to criticism, cognitive effects such as increased mistakes and problems decision-making, or behavioural changes such as arriving late or not meeting deadlines, which are unusual. I know I've mentioned before about communication, but a simple "Are you okay?" can go a long way. To help start the conversation, remember there are some simple steps that you can take. Be ready to listen and give time. Be prepared to be open-minded and understanding. And pick the moment as to when and where you speak with your worker. There's a lot of reinforcing message, as you can see, when it comes to mental health. At Wood, we've used the Are You OK resources to help increase the confidence of workers to have supportive conversations, and which recently paid dividends when workers were able to get a colleague appropriate help when they admitted they weren't okay. It's only 3 simple words, but it can make such a difference. As a manager too, it's important that you not only know how to support your workers, but also how to look after your own mental health as well. Some good resources that you can access and use to help you be your best every day at work includes doing a mental health screen on the Ahead for Business website. This checkup uses standardized screening tools for depression, anxiety, stress, as well as alcohol consumption, and takes only about 5 minutes to complete. The results give an understanding of your mental health status and provide some personalized topics that you can use to help with your own mental health. The site also provides some great information if you are that small business owner to manage your own recovery and return to work process as well. In New South Wales, you can also use the Get Healthy at Work program to have a free and confidential lifestyle check, either with a face-to-face assessment with a trained health practitioner or an online screening check, which looks not only at your risk of mental ill health, but diabetes and heart disease too. Evidence has also shown that there are 5 steps to improving mental well-being, and is something as managers that we can all follow too when it comes to supporting ourselves. By giving the 5 steps a try, you may feel happier, more positive, and be able to get the most out of life, both at home and in the workplace. The 5 steps you need to take are connecting, being active, keeping learning, taking notice, and giving to others. The 5 Ways to Wellbeing website provides some great examples as to how you can follow these steps. It also explains why these activities are important and how they can benefit you. I should hasten to add that they are activities that you can share with everyone in your workplace. They're not exclusive to just managers and supervisors. When it comes to supporting recovery, some approaches have been found to be more effective than others. The 2017 University of Sydney study, a framework to create more mentally healthy workplaces, found that interventions such as work-focused psychological therapy programs, where a trained clinician or rehabilitation provider supported a personalised approach to returning to work, it improved recovery outcomes. Involving a workplace rehabilitation consultant can be really helpful when it comes to support someone who has been absent through psychological injury. They can not only provide immediate contact with your worker once you become aware that someone is absent or needs support as a result of work-related psychological injury, but they can provide someone that your worker can express their concerns to, as well as be someone that can assist them through the recovery process. And that's not all that you can do to help get someone back to work or support their recovery within the workplace. Providing a supportive and positive approach not only at the time you are aware of the psychological injury, but throughout the rehabilitation process, has been demonstrated to not only improve the rate of return to work, but also the success of the return to work. When I speak about return to work, I mean not just getting a worker back to work, but also having a worker remain in work while they recover from injury or illness. In relation to this, there are a couple of important points that you need to remember and consider. People with mental health issues are often still able to make positive contributions to the workplace, so value and encourage their contribution. And recovery at work has benefits for everyone: the individual, their family, their community, and your business, both culturally and financially. I know I say this a lot, but your commitment to this process is vital. Research by Monash University in 2018 in the study Employer Support for Injured Australian Workers, Overview and Association with Return to Work, clearly showed that workers who received support from their employers had up to 5 times greater odds of returning in comparison with those reporting a neutral or negative experience. This is against a background where less than 1/3, or 30.1% of workers with psychological injuries reported positive experiences. So how you communicate your approach and support is significant. Words and language are of key importance when it comes to talking about personal mental health. Using empathetic language as well as agreed regular communication helps not only show that you care, but encourages discussions that help promote personal recovery. You can find guidance on how to best communicate from WorkSafe Queensland's Tips for Communicating with Injured Workers. Another good resource that you can use is the Recovery-Oriented Language Guide from the Mental Health Coordinating Council. This can particularly help when discussing recovery at work. Don't forget to invite your workers to work functions or meetings that they may be able to attend, so that they both feel valued as well as maintain a connection with the workplace. It's having such supportive conditions and relationships with work, with supervisors, and with co-workers which can make all the difference, as can having a personalised approach to recovery. And this is where return to work planning comes in. Before I start speaking about return to work planning in depth, remember those other or biopsychosocial factors that I spoke about earlier? As a quick memory jog, I've included them on the slide. These are different for everyone and influences not only how a worker will respond to events, but also influences the adjustments and supports needed to recover as well. The Safe Work Australia Taking Action framework in 2017 showed that better outcomes were obtained using the personalised, coordinated approach. Identifying and addressing the biopsychosocial factors that could impact on recovery and return to work by offering the right support at the right time made all the difference. So when it comes to that return to work plan, consider all the information and recommendations provided by the health professionals and rehabilitation coordinator. And sit down and have a chat with your worker and agree together what that plan will involve. There are some good resources available to help you tailor these plans. Return to Work South Australia has produced a guide, Managing Psychiatric Injuries, a guide for return to work coordinators, which looks at flexible options, varied work times, as well as offering a variety of tasks or quieter locations to help support returns. The SuperFriend and Safe Work Australia Best Practice Framework for the Management of Psychological Claims also provides a roadmap of practical, evidence-based recommendations that can help both those unfortunately already experiencing a work-related psychological injury, as well as those who are at risk of developing one. While Comcare provides some additional advice in their guidance, Working for Recovery, Suitable Employment for Return to Work Following Psychological Injury, on empowering workers to manage their recovery, and this has been found to be vital. Getting the right medical treatment to support your worker is important, but you might be surprised to hear has been shown to actually have little impact on work participation outcomes. What makes the difference is empowering your worker to manage their injury, fostering your relationship with your worker, and keeping your worker engaged in the return to work process. This active involvement approach is not only emphasised by Comcare, but seen in the WorkSafe Queensland Mentally Healthy Workplace Toolkit too. It also is one of the 5 action areas which make up the new National Return to Work Strategy issued by Safe Work Australia this year. If you haven't seen or read this guidance, then I'd encourage you to do so. Applying an approach that not only focuses on your workers' strengths, but encourages their active participation helps achieve a more positive and effective return to work. So, how do you go about this? The strength-based approach involves 8 key actions areas. First and foremost is recognising and growing your workers' capabilities and encouraging them to use these at work. Focus on what they can do rather than on what they can't. Secondly, set clear expectations as well as clearly articulating their roles and responsibilities. If your worker understands how their work contributes to the overall organisation objectives, it helps them see meaning and value in their work and helps build their self-confidence, as does supportive peer networks. Promoting peer networks is the third of the action areas. Having supportive colleagues in the workplace helps build both organisational as well as individual resilience. Having a resilient team where people feel connected is an important way of providing recovery skills, transferring knowledge, as well as supporting change as your worker returns to work. Encourage both formal and informal team building. It all pays dividends in the long run. It should go without saying, but make sure that your worker has a say in decisions that affect them. This is the fourth of the action areas and emphasises the benefits of facilitation in getting a more positive return to work. Jointly agree on all planned health, occupational or rehabilitation interventions or services, as well as the return to work plans. And recognise progress, the fifth of the actions. A sense of achievement in work is important, probably even more so during the return to work process. So recognise and learn from both the gains as well as the setbacks. As you know yourself, job satisfaction comes from feeling that you are making progress. Communicating effectively is something I've already spoken of before. But remember, when you communicate effectively with your workers, it builds positive relationships, and this contributes to your workplace resilience. It's also the sixth of the actions that make up the strength-based approach to recovery. As does promoting personal skills, which makes the seventh action. By encouraging your workers to think critically, As you know, they are more likely to come up with the practical solutions that can help deal with workplace problems. Finally, the eighth of the actions is to encourage a balanced approach to work. Make sure that not only is work carried out in a safe manner, but there is time too for rest, exercises, and family time to maintain resilience. Everyone should have energy left at the end of the working day. Finally, a quick reminder on the important points of connecting to support that I've just spoken about. Remember, your actions for connecting to support are intervening early if you identify something is wrong. Create positive workplace relationships and communications. Plan for returning to work and supporting a strength-based approach. As you will have seen from viewing this e-learning, there are a number of simple but effective actions you can take to develop a mentally healthy workplace. Every workplace is different, so it's about taking this knowledge and tailoring it to suit your work environment. Approach your plan for creating a mentally healthy workplace as you would any issue that arises within your business. You need to understand the issue, create a realistic plan, ensure adequate resources, and importantly, review the plan to assess its effectiveness. It's also about recognizing that you may already be taking some of the steps, as to be honest, many are simply good business practices backed up by both increased awareness of workplace mental health as well as compliance with our regulatory requirements. So look at and evaluate what you might already have in place, identify any gaps or areas for improvement, and build your plan. A targeted strategic plan that has been developed in consultation with your workers ensures that any investment you do make, whether time, money, or other resources, will be effective. Remember that this means that you need to lead change, create a positive culture, and manage your workplace factors, raise awareness, and educate and connect to support. And last but not least, irrespective of the industry that you are in, your people are your greatest asset. Look after them, empower them, and you will gain mutual trust and respect. But more importantly, you will have created that mentally healthy workplace.